AK Anthony's son, Anil Anthony, has resigned from the Congress. This is a day after he spoke against the BBC documentary. What we're going to do is essentially give you more details about this story. Anil Anthony has spoken exclusively to CNN News18, saying, "I resigned early this morning. At this moment, I can say that whatever happened yesterday played a very crucial role in this decision. I wrote a tweet with clear intentions." He also said that I refuse to retract my statement. My father worked for this organization for 40 years, and this is the reaction I get from one tweet. We're crossing over to CNN News 18 senior editor Pallavi Ghosh. Pallavi, massive development. Tell us more about what's going on.
I mean, yesterday the context is that Anil Anthony had tweeted and he had also spoken to us in which he said that, he does not think that we should get very angsty about the BBC documentary being put on hold by the government. He said that the Britishers have colonized us 200 years back and they are going to take advantage of the differences. We may have political differences with the BJP, but that does not mean that we support the BBC documentary. Well, all hell broke loose after that, and we saw that reaction which came in from Anil Antony in his resignation letter. Clearly, he was under pressure, getting calls from senior Congress leaders, asking him to withdraw the tweet, but he refused to do so. All of this has happened immediately after, ironically, Rahul Gandhi's press conference yesterday, where he said we are allowed to have our conversations. In our party, there's inner-party democracy, and therefore we should not hold it against anyone. And he was, of course, talking in the context of the Digvijay Singh's comment. But this latest development is something which is going to embolden the BJP, and so I would say it's deeply embarrassing for the Congress.
And why on earth would he have to retract his statement when it aligns with what the centre is already saying about this film, this documentary being propaganda?
No, because he happens to be a Congress leader, and because he's a Congress leader, the Congress party would expect him to toe the official line, which he clearly did not want to do so, because he said whatever I tweeted was in sync with my personal opinion, and therefore I'm allowed to hold my own opinion. In fact, in his resignation letter, he goes on to say that you are having a yatra or a trek of love, and where you're allowed to have freedom of speech, expression, that's what you're fighting for. So why is it that I'm not entitled to that? I think that's the point he's trying to make, that, it was my personal opinion, and frankly speaking, he made it very, very clear repeatedly when we were speaking to him that it's his own individual opinion, despite the fact that the Congress party had an alternative point of view. But he should not be trolled, he should not be pressurized, and that's the reason why he's decided not to succumb under pressure and quit from all the posts he held in the Congress party.
All right, Pallavi, please stay with us. We are now being joined by Mr. R.P. Singh of the BJP. Mr. Singh, thank you so much for speaking with CNN News 18. Could you please give us your first reaction to the fact that AK Anthony's son, Anil Anthony, has now resigned from the Congress? This comes just a day after he made remarks essentially supporting the government's stance when it comes to the BBC documentary as well, calling it propaganda.
Well, the highlight of his letter is that he talks about a bunch of psychopaths and chamchas who would unquestionably be at your beck and call. I mean, he's saying that there's no voice of dissent within the Congress party, although Congress speaks a lot of expression of freedom. Secondly, there's another thing which he mentioned about in his letter is that without being fed this negativity and being involved in these destructive narratives, many against the very core interest of the India, these, I strongly believe, will end up in the dustbin of the history. He's already referring to the negative campaign being launched by Congress. It will mean that all those Congress leaders who are leading the negative campaign will lead to the dustbin of the history. So the boy is clear in his mind what he's talking about, and then he is clear that the negative campaign or the negativity never helps the party to grow. But as Congress is believing in or propagating the BBC propaganda documentary, is probably their thing is it can help them to divide the society again and then cater to their vote bank, and he's taken a stand against that.
And now beyond this, in the context of Digvijay's comment, Rahul yesterday, while addressing a press conference, he had said that we have democracy in the party, but Anthony told us that he was asked us to take down the tweet. How do you see this?
Well, Congress and democracy and Congress and dissent doesn't go together. There's no democracy in the Congress. And then what Digvijay Singh also has said, he has reiterated whatever he has said again and again. And Rahul Gandhi has not commented on him at all. I mean, rather is a mute support to whatever Digvijay Singh has said.
How do you think the Congress will need to respond to all of this, the fact that Anil Anthony has now resigned? Because as we've mentioned and as you also mentioned, this is a big embarrassment for the Congress.
Well, this is not the first time that people within the party have resigned because they feel that they don't have space within the party, one, and then they feel there's no voice of dissent, and thirdly, that they feel that Congress leadership more surrounded by psychopaths or chamchas, as he has mentioned in his letter. It was Jyotiraja Scindia who also felt the same. It was Hemanta Biswa Sharma who also felt the same. I mean, time and time again, the leadership within the Congress have been quitting. Even Ghulam Nabi Azad has mentioned in his resignation letter about the same thing, that there is no space for the core party cadre, but it's more of the chamchas who are surrounded, who don't have the ground, and they are trying to brief the party leadership and tell party leadership what to do, other than the core workers of the party.
All right. Mr. Ravi Singh, I do have one final question for you. Essentially, do you think this is another signal that the opposition to Modi is taking precedence over the Western spin?
Come again. Sorry, I couldn't answer. Come again.
Absolutely. Now, my final question to you is, do you think that the opposition to Modi is essentially taking precedence over stopping a Western spin when it comes to the BJP's rivals?
See, problem with the Congress party is they want to oppose Prime Minister Modi, but while doing that, they go to the extent that they harm the interests of the country. And they start questioning the valor of the army, and that leads to a problem with the basic ethos of the Indian institutions, because they start questioning the Indian institution itself, the democratic institutions, and the reason behind it is that they don't believe in democracy, and they have always undermined the democracy, whether it is the Supreme Court, whether it is the army, whether it is the election commission. They don't have the faith in the core institution of the country.
All right, Mr. R.P. Singh from the BJP, thank you so much for speaking to CNN News 18 and for giving us your perspective on this big development. We're crossing back over to CNN News 18's senior editor, Pallavi Ghosh. Pallavi, just to give context to our viewers, could you go over what Anil Anthony had tweeted out yesterday?
So yesterday, Anil Antony had tweeted to say that the BBC documentary is something which came in from the Britishers who had colonized us 200 years back. And we may have political differences with the BJP or with their leader. And obviously he was making a reference to the Prime Minister. But there's a closure. The Gujarat riots happened a long, long back. Supreme Court also had come out with a verdict, and we need to respect that. And therefore, for his party to support the BBC documentary is, in his personal opinion, not correct. But as expected, that evokes a very strong reaction. That's what Anil Antony makes a reference to in his resignation letter, that he was barraged with phone calls, messages, there were trolls, there were tweets, attacks on him on the Facebook timeline as well. And therefore, he was left with no other choice and under pressure. And because he refused to retract his tweet, despite the pressure coming on him, he decided to quit from the Congress.
All right, Pallavina, beyond this, this is a question that we posed to R.P. Singh, but I'd also like your response to this. In the context of Digvijay's comment yesterday, Rahul had said that we have democracy in the party, but A.K. Anthony had spoken to us saying that he was asked to take down the tweet. Could you give us more, tell us more about the significance of this?
Anil Antony has spoken. A.K. Anthony is his father, and yes, he makes a reference to his father. But it's interesting because not just yesterday, repeatedly the Congress party, whenever they ask this question, Rahul Gandhi certainly did mention this yesterday, that, in the context of Digvijay Singh's comment, saying that I may find it ridiculous and it was completely out of line and unacceptable. But unlike the BJP, at least we have an inner party democracy. We are allowed to have conversations. People are allowed to have their point of view. Now, again, interestingly, Anil Antony makes a reference to this point in his resignation letter. He takes a dig at the Yatra. He says it's a threat for love, but look at the double standards and the hypocrisy of the party. They troll you and attack you because you have your own opinion and have an alternative opinion. I know Anil Antony's point of view yesterday was not in sync with the Congress party, but the Congress clearly did not want to ignore it, and that therefore the pressure began on him. Now,